Welcome back to the Fuel Your Freedom podcast. As always, I am Emily, your host for this episode and all episodes. So today we are jumping into episode number 27. We are talking about how you and only you are the expert on your body. Now, the quote, "You are the CEO of your body," is a quote we use often at Unity, right? This means that whoever comes into our gym has the ultimate authority over what is best for them. So if we're doing a movement, doesn't feel good, they have the authority to stop regardless of what any of the coaches say, right? Especially true in pain, but this applies across the board, right? This applies to health, fitness, wellness, all things, and in all aspects of a health and fitness journey as well as life. Right? And I'm going to take this a step further and even say you are the expert in your own body, right? As coaches, we can only guide people on a path that we've determined will likely work for them to help achieve their goals. But the pinnacle of evidence is only found after we do a trial period. The perfect program can look amazing on paper, right? But as someone starts to execute it, it can turn into a flop sometimes, right? Things can just not go according to plan. The body doesn't respond right. Again, regardless of the goal, this is across the board. There's pain, like I mentioned before, etc. This is where you are the expert. You are the CEO. You take the reins and put a stop to the movement, program, etc. that isn't working for you, right? As a coach, it's then my job to problem solve and find another way to achieve those goals. There's always 2 ways, 3 ways, 4 ways, multiple ways to get there. But I'm the navigator. I'm in the passenger seat as the coach. You are in the driver's seat. You dictate the actual turns we make, even though I may suggest a right. If you think left sounds better, you have control over your journey. Now, you might be thinking, this seems easier said than done, and it is. We're programmed and taught to trust authority figures, coaches, doctors, other medical professionals, etc. And if they are people who've earned our trust, it's likely not misplaced trust, right? It's often that, yeah, we should trust them. We've hired them, essentially. We've paid for services for them to help guide us on our journey. But at the same time, what are the words I'm looking for? This difference in authority can make it hard to speak up. Now, this is where I'm going to tie in a personal story from something I've been going through. And this is the first time I've actually spoken about this on anything. So kind of bear with me here. Let's dive in. Now, I've been on birth control for quite a few years, right? And if you've taken any form of the pill, you'll know that the side effects can be crazy, right? Now, when I started, I felt like I hit the lottery. I didn't have any issues. It was a seamless transition, and I stayed on the same one for years, right? Didn't even think anything of it. It was honestly one of the best experiences that I personally have heard of. Now, in August of 2020, I went to pick up my prescription and was told the packaging had changed. Okay, awesome. But the pill was the same one that I had been taking for the years prior. I noticed it was different. Obviously, the packaging looked different and the name was different, but figured that my primary care provider or pharmacist would have informed me if it was anything more than a packaging change. Not to spoil the story, but they did not. Now, fast forward to November, I started noticing things that seemed kind of strange. I gained weight seemingly out of nowhere with minimal change to eating or exercise habits. And it was also in a different way than I had ever gained weight in the past. While I would usually notice it in like my upper body or my face when I started to gain weight first, this was almost exclusively in my hips and lower stomach. Very strange. Like for me, and I just knew, having gone through cuts and gained weight and lost weight, I just knew that it wasn't normal for me. but I just wasn't sure what was causing it. I also started experiencing higher levels of anxiety, which turned into spiraling thoughts, overthinking, overwhelm. And like the weight loss, this was seemingly out of nowhere. When I had experienced this level of it in the past, it was during a time when I was living in a poor situation. I was trying to finish school, balancing 3 jobs, preparing for my professional internship. It was just a very stressful time, and there was so much going on, and none of which is currently my life, right? Like I love my job. I live in a great place. I'm not in school anymore. It just wasn't adding up. And simply put, I was starting to just not feel like me. Something was off, but I didn't know what it was. And honestly, I attributed it to the ongoing stress of the pandemic in 2020 and carrying into 2021, that so-called COVID fatigue, if you will. And I treated it like stress. I tried to de-stress more, disconnect more. I knew all of these things could have a tie to stress. And that's what I thought that it was, because stress can make you gain weight. Stress can make you more anxious. You can be, all of these things can be a cause of stress. So I treated the stress as I thought I was doing. And I thought for a while it was getting better. And then until I realized after a conversation that it was probably not, in fact, getting better. So I dove deeper. I looked at anything and everything that might have changed during this time. I looked back, I track everything in my Google Calendar, like I time track my day, like down to the hour, 15-minute mark, if you will, some days. And I looked at everything I was doing. I looked at workouts. I looked at how much I was moving, where I was moving, things that were happening, all the things. And I saw the note in my calendar that said, pick up prescription. And I remembered that packaging change on my birth control. Dug out the package, did some Googling. As it turns out, the one that I had picked up in August was a comparable generic that's supposed to be the same as the one I was taking. Now I'm going to keep the brands anonymous. It doesn't really matter. But I started Googling reviews of each of them. The one I was first taking for a couple years, and then the one after. And as it turns out, it was supposed to be the same, but the reviews were far from the same. Many of the things I was experiencing, changes in mood, tiredness, fatigue, weight gain, anxious thoughts, etc., were all super common when reading people's experience of taking this new pill. I stopped taking it immediately, essentially overnight. And yes, I know you perhaps should contact your primary care provider. And when I say perhaps, you definitely should contact your primary care provider before stopping any medication. But the current track record, and I made the executive decision as the CEO of my body that it was no longer suiting me to continue taking this. Within 4 weeks, I saw my weight stabilize and even slightly drop with 0 other changes to nutrition, diet, movement, exercise, etc. I started to feel less anxious and stressed all the time. I started to notice some of those other random things that were happening start to fade and disappear. And within 6 weeks, I felt kind of normal, right? Like it almost felt like I was back. And now I don't tell you this for pity or, congratulations or consolation. Like it's fine. I should have spoken up earlier. I don't deserve any of those things. But I tell this story because I'm not immune to it, right? Like me as a coach, I tell people all the time to listen to their body, to be the CEO of their own body. And yet when I was in it, I didn't really speak up about it, right? I trusted those in a position of power and didn't trust and didn't listen to my body. And as a coach, I would never want that for any of the people I work with, which is how this podcast episode came to be now that I want to start talking about it. So I always leave with actionable takeaways. And this week we're diving into 4 things you can do to be a better advocate for yourself, right? So number 1, ask questions. The chances are someone will have answers. When we ask questions from a place of curiosity, it allows people to tell us what they know. Instead of going in with a challenging question, it allows when we ask simply out of curiosity, hey, what do you think about this? Or framing things from a place of curiosity allows for an open platform for discussion and for you to learn more about what you're experiencing, feeling, etc. Number 2, speak up if it doesn't feel right. Professionals don't know what we don't know. A movement, for example, as a coach, can look visually perfect, but still not feel right as you're doing it. And as with my story, the same goes for medication and internal things. But if the professional doesn't know to do further tests or try different things, they might not think to do them if they don't know it doesn't feel right for you, right? For example, I had someone doing a step up the other day and she's feeling some pain in the knee. Well, looking at her step up, I wouldn't have ever thought that she was. But when we made some modifications, we were able to take away that pain. But visually, I couldn't see the pain happening. Well, maybe a little grimace on the face here and then. But visually, like the movement didn't look like it would experience pain. But she was experiencing pain, and that's totally valid. And that brings us to our next number 3. Put your foot down on pain. Now, this is more of an exercise-related one, but pain is a full stop, especially when I'm working with someone on a new movement. I want to know if there's pain. There's always something we can do, even if it means stopping the exercise entirely and referring out to a physical therapist or other professional. There's always something we can do to reduce or avoid pain. Know the difference between discomfort, right? Things can feel uncomfortable. That's okay. But pain isn't good. Pain usually is our body telling us full stop, like change what you're doing right now. Finally, number 4, seek a second opinion. When you're not sure, ask someone else. Whether it's fitness and nutrition or other medical professional, there's always people who are experts in one area or have experience with another. Talking to more than one person will give you an outsider perspective or just view the situation from a different lens than your original professional you consulted may not have seen, right? That's why we work as a team at Unity. We talk a lot between coaches like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Some of us are experts in different areas, and we can see and combine all of our experiences and view a situation through multiple different lenses so that we know we're getting the best answer for the client in that situation. So this week was a bit of a shorter episode, so we are diving right into that empowered action. And again, I always focus on immediate action steps, but this one might be more of an ongoing task. Take note of where you can advocate and be the CEO of your body. Then start small, but take steps towards advocating for yourself. Ask questions about it. Be curious. Speak up if you don't feel like yourself. Put your foot down on pain. And if necessary, seek a second opinion. Just be your own advocate, right? It's a lesson that obviously, as I'm telling you, I can sometimes learn and take myself, but it's hard to do in that situation. So perhaps bookmark this episode, remember it, come back to it when you're in a situation where you're unsure, and just remember that you are the expert of your body, right? No one knows it like you do. Sure, yeah, doctors can go to school for years, and me as a coach went to school certifications for years, but you've been living in your body longer than I have ever studied fitness and nutrition, right? You have been living in your body. You know what it feels like to be normal. You know what it feels like to not. You know, you are the expert, right? You know the most about your body, more than anyone else. Take time to trust yourself. Again, use those questions if you're not sure and advocate for yourself. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Fuel Your Freedom podcast. This was a good one. I haven't talked about that before, so you guys get a little insider knowledge. I don't know that I'll make a post about it for a bit, but little insider info for those listeners of the podcast. I think that's all I have for you today. So as always, if you found this episode valuable and you want to share it with someone who may also find it valuable, I would greatly appreciate it. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you want to leave a rating and review, I would greatly appreciate that as well. Otherwise, I will chat with you guys next week in episode number 28. Bye, everybody.